Welcome to another edition of Real Talk with Real People, a candid conversation with Dr. Caroline Bethea-Jones. I am your host, and today we will continue to have candid conversations about faith and religion. Ever since I was a little girl, I have been fascinated with religion. When I was younger, I understood religion to be a study of the Holy Bible. I didn't know other religions existed. I believed that everyone believed as I believed and received the same teaching. I later discovered that that was not necessarily true. But it would take many years to realize that there was much more to religion than what I was initially taught. As a child, I questioned everything. And when I didn't get the answers I was looking for, I began my own search for truth. And that search led me down a rabbit hole from which I have yet to emerge. I am still searching and learning more than 40 years later, becoming a doctor of philosophy and biblical studies, and I have found that there is no beginning and no end. From forever in the past to forever in the future, He is God, and I will never be able to grasp His sovereignty. But even still, my quest for knowledge continues. My returning guest is Mr. Nikaamen, and for the next 3 months, he will teach me something new. We will have amazing spiritual conversations that will continue to guide me on this spiritual journey as I strive to obtain a higher consciousness. And although often called a teacher, there is still a lot to learn, and I am not afraid to call myself a student. I welcome this opportunity to learn and grow. So welcome to my show. So welcome back. I am happy to be back to our last discussion on this very important topic, Kemet. I'm here once again with my guest, Ms. Kinetic Jones, Nikaamen, Mr. Basui, Nikaamen, and of course my lovely co-host, Miss Anita Crum. How are you doing, Anita? So Anita.
Excellent. Thank you. Very well.
Good. It's good to see you again. And you're looking rather lovely, I might say. My audience can't see you, so it's their loss. Because you're looking very lovely.
You're too kind. Touche. Thank you.
So, Anita, we were in a great conversations these last two sessions that we have, and I know that you took lots of notes. So just for the sake of our audience tonight, do you want to just give us a recap so that you can introduce our guests to come back in and start speaking again?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Caroline. Yes, last month's podcast was, I thought it was the best of the best. And I know that we're lined up to close this out today with some more richness. And as a recap, last month, we talked about the language of the gods. Basui talked about what it is and why it's important. And without giving a lot of detail, I'll just do high-level recap. It had to do with education and reparations, which we all know is in and of itself just a small portion of what we're excavating during these conversations. Also, we talked about decoding the pyramids and keywords and concepts. Keywords and concepts, when you talk about language in any context, there's language, and language needs to be understood so that we understand the times, the people, and also the history. And Basui did an excellent job giving us those keywords and concepts. And then the bulk of our conversation went about how to study it all. And that was where the richness came in. And it tied in some of the things that we're seeing playing out in our present day environment for the society and across the globe. And so today we're here and we're going to be talking about the spiritual guides for your spiritual journey and topics that fall underneath that. So Without further ado and much anticipation for more rich conversation, I am introducing here Basui Nikaamen, and also on the line is Bethea-Jones Nikaamen. Basui, welcome. The floor is yours.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome, welcome. And Dua, Ashe. Thanks for having me back. Thanks for having me back. Once again, much appreciative. Anytime, we're able to really speak on spiritual matters, especially when we're able to expose the hidden truths, about our history. It's always opportune, an opportune time to do so. There's never a time that isn't. So I appreciate the platform to be able to do that.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you again for coming back.
Yes. So today we are here to talk about Kinetic Spirituality. Now we're actually getting into the spiritual system of it all now, right? So I guess we'll start off with what Kinetic Spirituality means.
Okay. Sounds good. Go ahead.
Kinetic Spirituality, I would say that it's a system that promotes and allows for the personal fulfillment of that divine exchange between the creator and creation. The divine exchange. And that divine exchange is the creator. And I'm just going to go to the creation story very, very briefly. One of the most popular creation stories. The one that originated out of the mythology of Anu, with Atum Ra was the creator. And see, what it was Atum Ra was suspended in the pre-created state. And so Atum Ra realizes that it wants to experience, and now just keep in mind, I'll say Atum Ra or I'll say Necha. They're one and the same. The names are interchangeable. Atum Ra was just a name that was prescribed to the all-encompassing creator. We can also call that divinity Necha, right? Or that entity Necha, right? And so Atum Ra has an awareness and wants to experience life outside of the pre-created state. And he wants to create a life where it'll be able to experience the fullness of itself, right? Experience everything that it can do and in every form that it can possibly do it. That's what the creator wants to do. That's its reason for creating creation as it is told to us, the way that we perceive it. And before the creator does this, the Necha or Atum Ra creates a platform that will allow for creation to fold in an orderly, balanced, harmonious, and reciprocal fashion, right? And this platform will serve as the theme for creation because it will live within everything in creation, right? As above, so below, it'll live within everything. In the same form, maybe different magnitudes, right? And it will govern the way that everything communicates with each other. And if we translate that into humanity, right, we'll look at that as our moral code of ethics. So this is the platform that will be created before creation is even began. And this will be called Ma'at, right? It's the order of the universe, the way that everything is going to unfold, the law of the universe. And if you ever watch the documentary on a study like the Big Bang Theory or anything like that, you see the order of the universe, from the development of the domains, right? How the earth was created first, then came the plant domain, then the animal domain, then the human domain. That's Ma'at, you know, responsible for that order. You know, the way the ozone layer was formed, you know, how the water, the molecules are brought down from the meteor storm that happened billions of years ago, right? That flooded the waters, or that went into the waters, went under the waters, and mixed with the volcanoes under the waters, and they started to pollute the air, and that's how oxygen, you know, started to be created in the air. And see, that's Ma'at. You know, it's that divine order that allows for creation and the next step of creation to happen, and every step that predilated that, right? So all of that would be in place before creator starts its to engender creation, right? And so just stopping right here, this is still the first part of the divine exchange, right? But let's get some principles that we can extract from this. And so from here, we realize the first principle is that everything is consciousness, right? This is a Kemetic principle. Everything is consciousness. And that we get that from Atum Ra being aware of its state, of its existence in the pre-created state, right? And that notion is a consciousness of its awareness, right? It's a, you know, being conscious of its awareness. Some call it consciousness being conscious of its own consciousness, right? It's a little convoluted, but that's what that is. That is that initial notion is the consciousness of the creator. And so everything after that is going to have a consciousness, because everything that creator creates will have that same substratum that exists within the creator. And so consciousness was there at the beginning. So everything will be created with that consciousness. Okay, is that right there clear so far?
Yes, that's very, very clear. Very, very clear.
All right, and so we'll get another principle from that too. And that is that everything happens in duality after this point on, because what happens is that once the creator separates itself from the pre-created state, that formed the first duality. You had pre-creation, creation, the subtle world, and now the physical world will come into play, right? And those are complementary. You know, they both still have Ma'at, you know, in both of them, right? But they're just complementary opposites now. And from that point on, everything will be formed in that fashion of having duality. Right? Whatever you want to look at, right? You could look at a chair and say, well, how does a chair happen? Well, it's not about the physical form that you're looking at, but it's that subtle form. Remember, at this point, physical life hasn't even been created yet. So we're talking about the substratums that exist in the subtle realm, right? And so what we're talking about when we say everything is duality is everything is made up of molecules. Everything. Molecules have negative and positive charges, right? So just at the subtlemost layer, we have our formation of duality, right? And so depending on how fast or slow those molecules move, things become inert, right? And we start to see things more. They can either be subtle, depending on how fast they move, or physical, like a chair, you know, depending on how slow they move, right? And so that's the second principle. And then our third spiritual philosophy is the philosophy that everything is unfolding in Ma'at. Everything is happening in accordance to Ma'at, right? The way that the cosmos move, our bodies, our internal bodies emulate that same movement, right? And it's to a point, it's so finite. It's such to a point where even the modicum amount of disturbance can cause chaos, right? And if we're talking cosmos, we can be talking natural catastrophe. If we're talking in our bodies, then we can be talking about sicknesses and, you know, and illnesses and diseases. And so these would be our spiritual philosophies that will happen before, you know, physical life is even created. And so that is the first. So after that, the creator now creates the billions of vessels in the physical world that it will now express itself through. And so that right there is the first part of this divine exchange. The creator now creates these vessels for it to experience itself through in life, right? And now the second part of this exchange is
Basui, before you go on, if I could please. So as I'm following your whole concept here, and what comes to mind is the saying, as above, so below.
As above, so below.
So below. Right. Okay, so that's that same concept. And so for us to understand that, I think that gives real clarity of where you're going with that, and it paints the picture clear. Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that, because that's what came to me. So hopefully it helps the listeners if they're trying to physically conceptualialize.
Right. And remember, these are spiritual philosophies.
Yes.
These exist in every religion, no matter what, box a person wants to circumscribe their religion in because of their culture. These spiritual philosophies are not going away. This is what it is, right? This was the creation of the universe, the laws that, speak to us from the cosmos, and so however you want to dress it up as, we're talking about the same thing. So yeah, that's why, well, I guess we'll get into that.
Good.
Right?
Yeah. No, I wanted for clarification.
I don't even want to go off into a tangent, but yeah.
No, and I don't want to take you there, but for clarification's sake, because it kept coming to me and I just wanted to put it out there. So thank you for clarifying, and please continue.
Okay. Do I. And so that was the first part of the divine exchange. The creator just did its part. It created creation for us to live as vessels. And so the creator can express itself through. So now it's our job as those physical vessels to manage ourselves in a divine way so that we can manage creation in a way that will allow the divine exchange to take place naturally, right? And our part is doing all of the things that would allow us to get back to our higher selves. It's funny because humans, we're the only ones that are not brought into the program. Everybody else is. Every other domain is brought into the program. So they don't need instruction on how to get to their higher selves because they're instinctive with nature, right? With the creator, with the laws of the universe. So we're the ones that need the instruction because we keep deterring. We wake up in the morning and say, I was born with my own body. I could do what I want to do, right? So we have that autonomy, way of thinking where we can move outside of the program and just do our own thing. And it's an irony because that is the thing, that consciousness that we have is the one thing that is supposed to make us as the managers of creation, right? We're supposed to be setting the scene for everything to unfold in a way that would allow the other domains to communicate with each other and prevent, these catastrophes from happening or overspilling to all of the other domains, right? We're the ones, because we have the consciousness that can do that. We can take plants and put them in a lighthouse. If one area starts to, become toxic, right? We can take animals, move them into another geography if that area starts to, become too toxic or anything like that. So we have that ability. We're the ones who have the ability to move through different domains and make creation safe for other domains, right? The other domains don't have that, if we do, but we use that to sometimes cripple creation and want to, go the way of our ego and say, well, you know what? I don't have to save anyone. I just have to save myself, And so that was just a little bit of a tangent, but right.
Basui,
Yes.
you speak about the domains. Can you just name those for anyone that's not familiar with what the domains are?
Right. So, the domains of life are the domains of life are the pretty much the platform that all life unfolds on, right? And so in an orderly fashion, this is the order of Ma'at. This is how life unfolded through the domains. The first domain is the mineral domain. That's the earth, the cosmos. Those are minerals. The stars are minerals, right? Sun's a mineral. The earth, planet is the mineral, the core, right? All of that came first. Then come the plants. So the plant domain happened next in line. Then after the plant domain came the animal domain, right? Then after the animal domain comes the human domain. We come last, right? On this order, this order of mind. So those are the domains of life that creation happens, and that we exchange communication on if we live according to Ma'at, because we're supposed to communicate within the domains. We shouldn't just think that, oh, we're human, we're above, animals in the plant domains. But those domains can help us in such a way that we don't even understand. And that was the beauty of the Kemet, because they understood nature. They had a reverence for the plant domain, a reverence for the animal domain. And they falsely call it animal worship, but it's a reverence, and I can get into that a little bit later. But yeah, so here was our part now of this divine exchange, was to make sure that creation was set up in divinely, so that the creator can have a peaceful expression through its vessels, right? So that's our part. In the roadmap that was provided by Nectar to help us stay on the path of this divine exchange are the universal laws and principles, right? That we call Necharu. That's our roadmap, those universal laws.
Okay.
Like,
Can
we
I
didn't
ask
need clocks. All we needed was the universe to let us know how we can navigate. Just follow the movements of the cosmos to let us know at what times we should navigate and do certain undertakings. But yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's good, because I'm understanding that. So, you're saying that the divine being, who we, for the purpose of this podcast, I'll say God, because that's what people
Sure. Yes.
acknowledge, or the divine being or God, set this whole thing up so that when he put the people on the earth, they would have everything, and now it's just a matter of using everything that was put in place for this divine being to express itself through his creation, us. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
The only job was just not to mess it up, right? Everything was put in play. Just be the vessels. Live righteously. Don't mess up this creation. Don't
we are
the other domains. Live coexistingly with the other domains. Don't destroy it, right? But we did that, right?
People did not get the memo. People did not get the memo.
Right. So we don't get the memo a lot of times, and so we always have this turmoil where we have to, try to elevate back up to, in terms of divinity. And then we fall off again, and then we have to keep elevating. Like I said, we're the only ones who have to do that. But all we have to do is just follow the divine plan. It's set in play. Since the beginning of time.
Let me say, but we are the only ones that were created with free will, though, right?
Right, but that's what I was saying, that consciousness, right?
Yeah, the ability, everything else that was put in place for our pleasure or our knowledge or instructions, but creation humans are the only ones that can make choices. So there's a risk right there, knowing that you may not stay on the plan, because you have the ability to choose whether or not you're going to stay on this path, correct?
Well, yeah, that is the risk,
Okay.
But I when Ma'at was put in place, you would expect that everyone would kind of fall in line, to this universal harmony. At one point we did, it was just that watershed moment where man just started to go astray. But then, that speaks to the fact that we were born with something else called egos, and once the ego starts to get out of control, so there goes humanity. And so we have to kind of work harder to try to cultivate a higher consciousness in order to keep that ego at bay. And so, we're the ones who have to do the cultivating, the actual work to make sure that creation doesn't get destroyed. Like I said, everybody else is brought in to the program, right?
But it sounds to me, I'm sorry, Anita, it sounds to me like that is the actual challenge then for humankind, to be able to overcome those, I'm gonna call it the ego because that's what you introduced, to be able to overcome the ego in order to stay balanced. Is when we overcome our ego that we're able to stay in balance. Is that correct? Does everybody feel that? So I'm feeling right now that the challenge is being individuals, being created with a free will, being created as one who has a free choice, is to be able to, our challenge in this world is to be able to overcome our ego. And that's across the board in every religion.
And I see it more as a challenge. Definitely challenge is the word to use for that. And, the reason why is because the ego is the default mechanism in reality. If all things else goes wrong, your ego is going to be there because your ego governs your survival. So your ego is going to guide you through life, but in survival mode, which is a mode that can be very threatening to others because anything will be perceived as a threat to your survival. It can be the smallest talk that somebody has or just a movement that you don't like that somebody does. You'll see it as an invasion of your space, right? So all of those things are manifested as a threat to your survival. And the ego will tell you, we have to deal with this because it's going to threat our survival. Yeah, and it may be a little bit much, but the ego just, all it knows is the concept of surviving. And if there's something else in this space, right, that poses some type of competition, that competition has to go, right? And it maybe not be violence, but in a way where you have a fallout with somebody that's unnecessary because you didn't check your ego, and you saw it as some type of threat to your survival. Maybe not you, but your ego did. And you just manifested it in a way where you couldn't understand it. So you just had a fallout with this person, when this person really did nothing to you, so that's what the ego, an uncontrolled ego, does to people. It makes them do things that are impulsive and instinctive in ways that they can't control, because it operates out of the subconscious. And so it throws all of these emotions at you from the subconscious, and we don't understand it because we haven't mastered that. Majority of the world doesn't operate on a higher consciousness. So that's man's downfall. The downfall is that we have to work to cultivate, the challenge is that we have to work to cultivate a higher consciousness because the ego is the default. It will always be there. So we need that thing that's going to buffer it. We weren't born with higher consciousness. We have to cultivate that, right? We have to cultivate that. Well, we were born with it, but we have to cultivate it. It was just in a suspended state, but it wasn't at the forefront like the ego is. And so, right. So see, this is the divine exchange, is that the creator does its part. Now we do our part. And when you look at, we'll touch upon a little bit later, but I just want to touch upon a little now. Or we'll talk about it in length later. But like the archaeology in Kemet. So when you look at certain monuments, right, these monuments were symbols of that divine exchange when they made these pyramids to true north, right? When they built them to the cosmos, right? And when they emulated the movements of the cosmos, right? So this was that reverence, See, the thing is that when you build a monument or a statue of something, that's immovable, or it's supposed to be immovable, which means that that reverence should last for a lifetime. It should be eternal. And that's how they looked at reverence, right? That reverence should be paid eternal for this exchange that we're living in. And you should set up monuments or set up things that symbolize your reverence for allowing us to be the vessels that the creator can express itself to. And that's what those monuments were saying. You know, they're like ways of saying thank you to the energies of the cosmos, to the Necharu and the Necha for allowing us to be here, you know, to exist. But so yes. Yeah, Dr. J, you were saying?
No, I said I got it. I got it.
Okay.
Yes, I understand that.
Right.
I think
So,
Anita had a question though. Before you go on, Anita, did your question get satisfied? Because you had a question.
It wasn't a question. I was just adding to when he talked about the 4 domains, the mineral, plants, animal, and then human. And it's as if there are tools in which to survive. Whatever we need, it's there. We had everything that we needed to do what we needed to do on Earth. And we still do, but we just have to recognize that. We have to recognize that it's all here. So that,
and you know, to let you know how those domains are within us, right? And you were all familiar with the chakra system, called the chakra system, right? In Kemet, it was called Sekam Shin Ra, right? And the Sanskrit term is chakra. The Indian term is chakra, right? In Kemet, it was Sekam Shin Ra. And just to give you an insight as to how those domains exist within us, right? You look at the chakra, start from the root, the ground chakra, what they call the earth chakra, right? Sometimes we'll call the root chakra the first one, but the first one is really the ground chakra, right? Where the black stones represent. And so the earth chakra represents the earth energy, right? They say that there's the core of the earth. We're all connected to the core of the earth by this invisible core, right? That's what energizes us. This is why when people, you know, they're told when they go in the park, take off your shoes when you get around the trees, when you get around the roots, right? So you can absorb that energy, right? From your earth core, right? And so that ground chakra represents that earth domain. And so now we get to the root chakra, which is at the coccyx bone, right? We're talking about roots, the root chakra. Now we're talking about plants, right? That supplant their roots deep within the earth, deep within the core. And so that you're symbolized by your root chakra, through your root chakra. And remember, your root chakra is the root chakra is a very grounding chakra because the roots extend. They can, just as far as trees grow up in the air is how far these roots, they may not grow straight down, but they grow sideways, but they can grow just as long, you know, into the ground. And so they're very grounding that way. And then we get into the navel chakra, which represents your instinct. That's that animal instinct, right? And so now we get into the third domain, the animal domain, right? And then we get into the solar plex chakra, which represents the sun, right? The solar plex chakra. We will call people of the sun, right? And then after that, we get into our spiritual chakra, because after the human domain, and then the solar plexus domain, you know, symbolizes the human domain. It runs parallel with the human domain. And then the chakra, all the other chakra after that is spiritual chakra. Once you get into your heart chakra, that opens the door to the upper chakra, the spiritual chakra. Now there's the spirit domain that permeates everything. And so we see now, here's a similarity of not above and below, but what's inside is also, you know, exists outside. This is Ma'at, you know, all this Ma'at allows this to take place, you know, this parallelism, of life that exists, whether it's above and below or inside, so outside, you know, the inner world and the outer world, or the universe and the universe, right? And so I know we got off track a little. So we were at the divine exchange.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, right. Also, and since we're talking about the reverence that the committee paid to the domains, and just kind of real quick to get to the animal domain, right? And kind of dispel this notion of animal worshiping, right? But it was the same reverence that the committee looked at other facets of nature as. And see, the thing about animals is that two things, that they're instinctive and they have superhuman qualities, right? So the fact that they're instinctive means that they were perceived as relayers of divine messages from the creator. Animal instinct can let you know when bad weather's coming, right? Birds know how to fly above the storm. When you see crows fly a certain way, you know there's something bad that may be about to happen, right? And so animals are very instinctive that way, and that's why animals were watched. The dung beetle was watched for the way that it cleans the earth, right? And so that's why the dung beetle was a very commonly used an amulet, you know, to clear away negative energies, you know, in ancient Kemet. The dung beetle was a very common amulet for that, you know, for the way that it cleansed away negative energy off the earth, right? And so they studied these animals, they revered that. So they saw that as the express of, like I said in the beginning, the creator or nature expressing itself through these vessels. And so they revered them. And the fact that they had superhuman qualities add to the allure even more. Because when I say superhuman qualities, animals can fly, right? Animals are 2 times faster than humans, most of them. Multiple times stronger than humans, most of them, right? And so when the committee saw that, they saw those superhuman qualities as, like I said, these were like messages from the creator, that these are qualities that we are supposed to harness as human beings, but within a human capacity. We can't fly. So let's not try to jump off buildings and emulate a falcon. But we do have something that can emulate a falcon. Remember, a falcon is the animal that soars higher than all other birds. Soars higher than all other birds. Watches over everything. We translate that into our capacity as our higher consciousness, because our higher consciousness has the ability to transcend physical reality and take us to heights that we've never dreamed imaginable, just as the falcon. And so that's why Heru, who was represented by the falcon in Kemet, was also a metaphor for higher consciousness, right? The other thing about the falcon is that it represents its superhuman quality was that it had a keen vision, right? That humans don't have. They could see miles from the sky under a leaf, spot a mouse, swoop down and kill the mouse, you know? We can't do that as humans, but in our capacity, we may not have that keen eyesight with our 2 eyes, but we do have the pineal gland, right? What they call the 3rd eye, but our teacher likes to say the 1st, because the pineal gland was actually developed before your, 2 physical eyes. But we have that 1st eye that allows us to see, to have clairvoyance, vision that we could never dream imaginable. The way that we can see into our meditations if we meditate with maybe some amethyst or some lapis lazuli and tap into that, pineal gland. And so that represents that keenness of vision. And so when you see the image, like whenever you think of Egypt or Kemet, you see the eye of the falcon, right? That was the eye of Heru, the right eye. It's usually represented from the side view, right? you can Google this, you can YouTube it, however you want. So many websites will have that eye implanted or superimposed in the brain, superimposed on the brain from the side view, where the brain from the side view matches the eye of the falcon, right? To a point where the eyeball within the falcon is placed right where the pineal gland sits in the brain, right? And so that just gives you that other, the parallelism with the pineal gland and the eyeball of the falcon, right? Why the falcon was revered so much, to have these qualities, for us to possess these qualities within us, right? And so that's where a lot of this animal reverence came to. It came to the fact that they were, one, instinctive, so they were tapped into the program, and two, they had those superhuman qualities that we could possess, but within our capacity, right? And so that was the reverence of animals. And so when you saw what, our Necharu, right? Our Necharu were represented in three forms. They were either in the human form, they were either in the animal form, full-fledged animal form, or they were composite of both, where they would have the human body and the head of the animal. And when you saw it in that form, that's when they're telling you that as a human, you should be trying to harness these qualities of the animal that's represented on your head, that you're wearing on your head, right? And so that's how, these animals became implanted now into Kemetic art as Necharu.
Okay, so are you saying that the animal form of this is for us to understand that we need to reach our higher self by using the animals and their abilities, their earthly abilities, to create our spiritual abilities?
Right. I mean, look, right. And that's that's doing the work of Ma'at.
Yes.
Right. Ma'at is creating harmony between the domains, right? One of the principles of Ma'at was harmony between the domains, along with order, right, and balance.
So when we talk about
right, the harmony is the ability to understand the other domains, step outside of yours and understand how we can harness the energy of those other domains. So that's doing the work of Ma'at, is to understand
when we talk about the
and how to translate it.
As above, as below, the animal forms is the below form. And then to match that, to that duality, for us to match that, we would have to go above that. So it would be the spiritual portion of the earthly portion. So we become the spiritual portion. That's what I'm getting. Is everybody else getting that too? That's what I'm getting.
Right. Hey, look, Dr. J, if you ask me, I feel like there's no cookie cutter approach on how to handle spiritual philosophies. I think that you make it what it is, and you make it make sense, especially within your mission and how you would use it to help embolden your energies. And we'll talk about that when we talk about my mission a little bit later.
That makes
I
sense
use those
to
spiritual
me.
energies.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, because it shows us as being powerful. Because obviously the spiritual side of that is more powerful than the earthly side of that. It shows us that if we can harness all that to reach our highest selves, it will make us more powerful. That's
right, because we're trying to emulate that which is superhuman, right? We're just trying to do it in our capacity.
But we can be superhuman spiritually, even
superhuman spiritually.
Right, even if we don't obtain it on a natural level, which I think we can too. But since we're doing that duality, it's like this is the natural level, but we can go higher than that as we do the opposite of it. That's how
I translate it,
okay.
the way that you just said it.
All right, I just wanted to be clear in my head what was going on. So you can continue. Not unless somebody has something they want to add to that. Anita?
No, I don't have anything to add. And I think that's a very clarifying point because although Basui didn't pull it together that way, but in following it, you picked up on it and it made a clear point for me. So, yeah, so continue. This is rich. This is
continue.
good.
Yeah, because that's just what I'm getting, which is fascinating because it's making me feel like
extremely
right, that all this power that we harness. Okay, carry on.
Okay, and so now we have, where are we at? The Nexharu. Now we have the Nexharu, right? And now we see how they are being used in, they are used in mythology when they're represented with the animal heads, what that means. And we see that throughout Kemet mythology. Mythology is one of the main ways that spirituality is expressed and translated, or was translated to the Kemetic youth. And now it should still be translated to us. We should always be into, our mythology to get metaphors, for how we can harness these energies. And that's the job of the Nexharu in these mythologies, right? They are those personalized spiritual laws of the universe, just put into a story so they can make a story out of this. And they can translate how these spiritual laws interact with us, how they interplay with us, and how they, interplay with each other, right? And so now we have these Kemetic mythologies, right? And all these mythologies, they pretty much communicate the spiritual, I guess the following spiritual concepts like the pre-created state. They all start with the pre-created state, the creator and the created state, the spiritual laws and principles of the universe that maintain creation once it was created. That would be the Nexharu, and and the afterlife. And the afterlife. All of them spoke on the afterlife as well. And so these mythologies were designed to relay those messages through the Nexharu. And from studying the Nexharu, now we get to really incorporate these principles, or we really get to ruminate on these principles and make them make sense in our lives. And one of the biggest mythologies that existed in all of Kemet, right? I know this, I said there were 4 theologies that existed, and you had the 42 districts, and each one of them had their own local Nexhar that they gave praise to. But the Asarian drama, Asar, Set, and Heru, existed all throughout Kemet, right? Even to a point where some of the local Nexharu of other districts would kind of super implant their Nexhar within that story, So everybody really wanted to partake in this drama, and wanted to be able to manifest the messages that were coming from this drama. And I guess real briefly, for anyone who really is unfamiliar with the story of Asar, Set, and Heru, we're talking about Asar and Set. They were the archetype of the king and queen, quote unquote, in Kemet, right? The archetype for the king and queen. They were the first king and queen in, mythological terms, right? They were the first king and queen. They brought civilization to Kemet after man's downfall. They brought civilization. They were the ones responsible for bringing civilization back to Kemet. So Asar then goes around the world because he realized this thing works, So he goes around the world on a campaign to civilize the world, and he's getting rave reviews about it. He's civilizing the world. He's bringing civilization to the world. But his brother is jealous. His brother wants the throne. His brother Set, or Setesh, sometimes you'll hear him called. And so he waits till Asar gets back. But mind you this, Set is jealous. Asar is gone away. Set wants the throne. He won't attempt to take it while Asar is gone. He won't attempt to like seize it because why? A Set is still there. This is to show you how powerful, women are. He's not going to try to do anything while a Set is, because a Set is bad. Like in any myth that a Set is found in, she makes miracles happen. Literally, she makes miracles, to dispose of whatever negative energy is around her or to get what she needs out of a situation, right? And so she was always seen as to be seen in awe, or like revered. So Set didn't mess with, the throne while Set was there by herself. So he waits till Asar gets back, and I think they're at a like party or something, and he comes up with this ruse to kill Asar. And he does, right? He puts Asar in a chest and he locks Asar in the chest and he dumps the chest into a river. The chest goes like up to Lebanon or somewhere. And so Set hears about this. She wasn't around when Set did this, of course. So she hears about this and goes to find Asar. She locates him, realizes that he's dead. And so she wants to revive Asar, bring him back to life. She doesn't have an heir, or Asar doesn't have an heir. So she wants to create this for Asar. Set hears about this. He goes to locate the chest that Asar is in, takes him out of the chest, chops him up into 14 pieces, and dispels him all over the land, right? So once he does that, now a Set goes on this campaign around Kemet, along with her best friend Nebuchadnezzar, to locate the 14 pieces. They do this, and they put Asar back together. And then from that, she turns into a dove, flaps her wings, and magically Asar is revived for the night. And from there, she bores his son. So, they're able to have copulation. She bores his son. And so now Heru is born. Heru represents higher consciousness. Well, let me get into the principles in a minute, right? So Heru is born. Set hears about this. So Set hides Heru in the marshlands of the Delta, until he's old enough to fight Set. And so when he gets trained by Jehuti and by his uncle, and so when he's old enough now, he gets in a battle with Set. They get into an 80-year battle, and Heru wins pretty much every battle. Heru wins, but Set doesn't go away. After a while, so now they take the case to the courts, right? And these are like 9 Necharu who work as the court, the lawgivers now, right? And so they plead their case to the Necharu. And it's finally awarded for Heru to take the throne and for Set. He really doesn't get punished, right? He's kind of not really awarded, but Ra is the creator. So Ra tells Set, I want you to travel with me on my bark, on my boat, and help me ward off a pep. A pep is like the big snake in Kemetic art that represents evil. So Set is actually used for good now. He's telling Set, I want you to come with me to help me ward off evil. I want you to lead my bark and do this. And so if you ever see this picture in Kemetic art, you see a boat with Ra on it. In front of the boat, there'll be Set holding up a stick and hitting a snake with the stick, right? And so that's what that picture is representing. The moment that Ra said, awards Heru the victor and has Set come fight off evil with him in his boat. And so that's the story of Asar, Set, and Heru in a very brief form, very abridged version, right? And so from the story, there's so many principles to take out of the story, right? Here you have Asar really represents the higher self, right? This is man in his highest form, the closest you can get to the creator, right? The one who is civilizing everything. But Set, not Set, his wife, Set, which represents the uncontrolled ego. This is what happens now when you let your ego get out of control. Man takes a plummet, right? And and man disregards his higher self, right? He becomes jealous, he disregards his higher self, right? And so that's the whole chopping up of the higher self, dismembering it. And life is supposed to be about you cultivating a wisdom. In order to find your higher self, we need now the wisdom that's going to lead us to all the correct pieces. A set represents wisdom. Remember, I told you in every mythology that she was in, she did miracles to get out of situations or get what she wanted from a situation. That's wisdom, right? That symbolizes. So this is what you need in order to go about the campaign of remembering your purpose, right? And that's what Aset is trying to do. She's trying to remember Asar. And so she does that. And it also tells you that in life, you need companionship that's going to help you along your mission. An arduous mission like this, you can't do it alone. You need companionship. So she has her best friend, Nebuchadnezzar, who goes all around the, Kemet to help her do this, right? And from that, Heru is born. And so now these are the things that you need to cultivate your higher consciousness. These are the things in play. Also, Jehuti is on the scene as well, right? Remember, Jehuti now is going to help Heru cultivate his training skills to defeat Set, right? And his uncle, representing family, right? And so now your higher consciousness is born, and now you need a divine intelligence. You need an intelligence that's gonna lead you the right way, so you don't go astray and lose your higher consciousness again. It's now married to your intelligence, your divine intelligence, and you're around family. Your uncle is training you, so now you're in a safe zone, cultivating your higher consciousness. And until it's ready to get to a point where now the battle with the ego and the spirit begins, the ego and the higher consciousness begins. This is the battle that we are all faced with. It's an eternal, this eternal battle until we can learn, well, it's an eternal battle, right? Because you can never really conquer your ego for good. Your ego is always going to come up with sophisticated and stronger techniques for you to subdue. And so you have to always come up with more sophisticated and stronger techniques to conquer your ego. And see, now there's a side story from the Asar, Set, and Heru. It's part of the story, but it has its own story. It's called the Contendings of Heru and Set. That's what this whole story is about, the battle between the 80-year battle between Heru and Set. And there's a passage where Heru says, I've defeated Set now thousands of times, and yet he still comes back, And so he's wondering, like, what more can I do? He's pondering. He's wondering why he can't defeat Set, And it's in battle. He could never really defeat Set in battle. It wasn't until he pleaded his case to the courts that he was actually able to win out his decision over Set, but he never defeated Set. So there's a symbolization that, you never really defeat your ego. You can keep it at bay, subdue it. And that's kind of what Ra did when Ra said, all right, Set, you can't be beat, but let me take you on my boat so you can help me now to defend evil, which is another principle telling you that even though we can allow, just as we can allow our ego to be uncontrolled and cause disaster and chaos and mayhem, we can also control it and have us work for the good for us. Remember, your ego represents brute strength and force and might. Those are things that can be seen as virtuous if used the right way, right? And so that's what Ra does. He takes Set and he figures out how to use, Set for good, and right. So now Heru becomes the victor where he is now united with his father. Well, once Heru becomes the victor, Heru is ruled victor on Earth. Asar is now ruled victor of the underworld. Because remember, Asar is deceased. He's ruled victor of the underworld. But in this way, it's symbolizing their union, right? As rulers of the two existences of life, right?
As above, so
Physical
below.
life and
Yeah.
subtle life.
And that turns back to as above and so below. You'll always
As above,
see that.
right? And now, right? As above, so below. And so now we'll see why in Kemet, the rulers saw themselves as the living Heru, right? Every ruler, especially in the beginning, they all had what's called Heru names. They all saw themselves as Heru on Earth. And when they were deceased, you ever saw that, you see the scene of Ma'at, that's the halls of Ma'at. At the very end of that scene, there's a Sar sitting on his chair. And when you were found vindicated, your heart was found lighter than a feather, you go to meet Asar, right? And that's the design, to be able to become one again with Asar. And so that is how we can take these mythologies and translate them into real world principles to help us along our journey. That's just one, and that's our job really, is to, when we read these mythologies, we're supposed to do this, to learn how to use them, study the Necharu within these stories, and understand how we can use them to help us along our journey, study their principles, their characteristics, right? And how we can manifest those. So that's the story of Asar, Set, and Heru.
Yeah, I actually want to thank you for taking the time to explain the entire story. I was writing things down as you was going, and this is amazing to me because this is the exact story told over and over again by every different religious state, and I understood the story totally. I understood it. I wrote down everything that was said, and I understood it. It sounds as though the story is retold and retold and retold because we need to understand it in everybody's language. We need to understand it in everybody's capacity so that everyone can understand the role that they play in getting back to their highest self, which takes us back to our divine Father, which is the one who created us. So thank you for actually going through that whole mythological story because it literally made sense to me. Kiana and Anita, I'm sure it made sense to you as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It was very plain.
Yeah, he's been very plain.
Yeah, he did a good job of explaining it. And I'm going to be really corny and geeky right now because what really stood out is when he was talking about a set and how she had to go find those 14 pieces of the king. And he said, he used the word remember. And I was just like, wow, remember, because that dismembered Asar, and she has to remember him, like literally put him back together. And I was like, wow, that word right there, I never even looked at the word remember like that. Like, oh my gosh, remembering is putting the pieces back together. Because there's pieces in your mind that you know the answer to this, but you can't say the answer until you put those pieces back together. I'm like, wow, that's what remember means. I'm like, wow.
That's deep, Kiana.
You know?
That's
so
very deep.
That was pretty deep to me. I was like, I never even knew what that would, like, the etymology of that word. It made so much sense because of this story now.
Yes.
Talk about awareness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's the thing, it should never be about, I'm even though I understand, what's been done to the history of Kemet. I know in the first two podcasts, we're talking about the injustice, but to me, it really stops there, because when it comes to spirituality, I'm not in the habit of saying that, well, yours came from mine. So mine is the one that needs to be practiced. And these, like I said before, when we were talking about the first creation story, these laws exist in all of them. Dr. J, you just pointed out, some of the principles that, you find in Christianity, right? Yes. Here you talk, we're seeing sibling rivalry, right? Sar and Set were brothers, right? And so we see that sibling rivalry played out over and over again, right? Even in the Lion, you see it played out over and over again, right? Where the son has to avenge the father, And so it's really about finding commonality, finding common ground, right? That will allow a room full of people with different spiritual backgrounds and religions to be able to build on this, and maybe I can extract something from yours. And so, I didn't think of it that way. Just the same way Kiana just said, remember, it just introduced the concept of remember in a different, in a whole new way,
And also, like Dr. J said, it has to be presented in different ways, because if it's just one way, you keep a group out that may not have access to it in that way, because they're like, oh, well, that's not for me, that's for Black people, because that's a Black story. So you have to make that story in every culture, and in other religions, that they still have access to this information, and they still get the point if they take the time to want to find that journey. It has to, because like you started just from the beginning with your intro with the creation story, the creator made these billions of vessels, which is us people, so that the creator could experience life on this planet. If it's every person that was created, then the creator has to have access to every person on the planet. And that's going to be done through different ways, through their culture, through what their interests are, through their stories, their symbols, because the creator didn't just create a certain group of people. And then what about the other people that exist? The creator created all the people. So the creator wants to be remembered, and he wants us to go up that chain of higher consciousness to get back to spirituality, to reach the creator again, just like the Sar and Set story showed how at the end of your life, you go sit next to a Sar, which is, the creator, God, like things like that. We all have that purpose in life, to do what you do as you're living, so that when you die, you're rejoined with the creator. It's like, it doesn't matter, like we've all said, it doesn't matter how you've come to that conclusion and what story or religion you follow, as long as you get that story and then now set your life on that path, you've done it. You've succeeded. You're doing it. You don't have to switch religions or switch anything to do it. If you follow one thing and you got that message to do it, keep doing that and do it well. Because just by doing that, you are raising the vibration on this planet. And also, well, that's one point. I don't know if someone wanted to comment on that, because I had another point. So before I get to the other point, I'll let someone else speak.
But what I wanted to say is, while you were talking, it was reminding me once again of the Tower of Babel, how the languages were changed so that, no one understood what anybody was saying. And then in Christianity, once the Holy Spirit arrived, it opened that up again so that everyone understood in their own language. It wasn't like everybody was, the disciples were speaking a language and everybody understood it. It was everyone was speaking in their own language, in their own understanding. So as I was listening to Basui, as clearly as he was telling me this mythological story from Kemet, I was seeing my own Christianity story, and I'm sure someone else might be seeing their story from whatever religion that they are studying as well. So it's not about changing, and Basui, you said this, it's not about changing somebody else's walk. It is about respecting that everyone is really on the same natural walk, but we're just going by it in different ways. Like I took a train, you took a plane, you drove your car, you rode your bike.
But we're all trying to get to the same destination.
Yes. So that's how I see it just now.
Yeah, that's good. I thank you for that transportation metaphor, because that also is very helpful. We're fighting about how we get in there, but we all just going to the same place, people.
And the thing is, even with that, we don't need to be trying to give somebody a ride to our destination because we think they're moving too slow. you know, speaking of transportation, right?
That's absolutely
we all
right.
get there when we're supposed to get there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I've got to convert you. I got to get you to, to my thing because you're taking too long to get to yours.
Yeah. And it's crazy because it's not just religious texts. It's everything in this world, because they have fables about these very principles too.
Yes.
Just like you're saying about the speed, that brings to mind the tortoise and the hare. One of my favorite fables. And that is also teaching at a very elementary level to children about that, what you just said. Everyone goes at their own pace, You don't begrudge the other person because they're moving like this, while you think, look at me, I can run this race circles around you. And then that gets you off your journey because you're looking over there. And now you look up and they're crossing the finish line and you haven't even finished your journey. So these are all lessons can be found in any place. And it's so amazing that when creation started, the intent was to put these lessons out here for us to have this roadmap. Basui used the word roadmap earlier. And now it's just like mind blown that we have all of these tools for the roadmap.
Yeah. And who's to say just because you move slower that you're not seeing the messages clearer? Sometimes it should allow you to see the messages clearer because you have more time on your journey, right? To really step back and get a real look at what's going on, the message that's being sent to you, as opposed to just trying to move straight through your path, Yeah. So we'll never know another person's walk, we just have to respect it and say, look, they're on their journey,
Yeah. I like what you said earlier when you said that you're never, I think you said that you would never say to somebody, you're on the wrong track. You need to get on my track.
Yeah.
I like how you said that, because that's been the problem, I think, throughout history. Everybody wants to convert somebody. Missionaries go into every single country that they want to go into, and
Right.
Individuals have been worshiping their whole entire life for centuries, and all of a sudden, what they've been worshiping, that's very detrimental and traumatic.
Yeah.
To a people.
That sounds like that ego, unchecked ego.
Yeah, that unchecked ego. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's my opinion that when you're going along on your journey, you really don't have time to look left or right to see how another person is doing their journey. You're just supposed to sojourn on and be respectful of the people to the left and right of you.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should get caught up in trying to give them a cheat code or share. I mean, share, of course, but by experience and by example. Don't try to beat people over the head with what you know, because who's to say that the journey you're on is theirs? I mean, like we said, it's the same goal, but there's different means to that end.
That's right.
It's not one way. And for us, and that really is ego, to think that you have the monopoly on it. Just like we said about humans, even thinking that they have the monopoly on existence. So they, don't have respect for any of the other domains. They don't care about the trees they cut down. They don't care about the animals they hit with their cars, all things. They don't care about, any, what I'm saying? Like, we know, we've seen, even without having this podcast to bring up this topic, we've seen in our years of living folks that don't have reverence for the other domains.
Yeah.
Clearly their ego is unchecked.
Yeah.
But again, that's me on my journey, not even looking left and right about what they're not doing, because that would take me off mine,
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I like also what you said, Basui, when you said the creator creates vessels to experience life. and he or she, because he or she is experiencing life through us, through everything that we experience. Gives the creator an opportunity to experience life on this realm, because he's on a higher, he or she is on a higher realm, right? And in order to experience what this life is, because we are connected to the creator, we're part of the creator. So in order for the creator to experience life on this realm, he experienced it through us.
Yeah, that's why my teacher always says that, gratitude is the highest form of love, right? Gratitude expresses divine love. Because gratitude is making you see that divine exchange within everything.
Yeah.
And you're giving thanks. You're not giving thanks to the object that you're looking at.
Right.
Thanks to the energy that's allowing that object to be there and express itself through the object. So that's the gratitude that you're having, for that entity, and that's right. So that's divine love, because that type of love is always connecting you to the source that's within the object. You're almost transparent in your vision. You're looking at that source through the object. And that's universal love. That's
so
gratitude.
it's not the object itself. You're not worshiping the stars or the moon or the animals or even people. What you're worshiping is the divine essence of what that particular thing brings.
Right.
The
and
laws,
you're giving gratitude as if it's a message from with the animals, why they revere the animal. They looked at it as not the animal itself, but they looked at the qualities that the creator was expressing through the animals, and say, wow, that's a message for us to cultivate those qualities. Like I say, the animal was just a vessel. It was showing you what you need to cultivate. So right, you're not worshiping the animal, but it's you're saying thank you for showing me that quality, that I need to find within myself, something to help me on my journey.
Yeah, that and that was all clear. I totally understood that whole thing.
Right. It's just a lot of people, they see, they automatically say that, animal worship and sun worship. So I think we talked about in the podcast, it was a reverence to the sun, a reverence of its movement, not the sun itself, but the movement that it was making, so it's about the energy, the subtle energy behind the actual physical object, that leads to, the reverence.
Examples of the divine laws and principles. They're just examples.
Right. They're just, that's all they are. That's all they are.
Yeah.
That's all they are.
Yeah, symbolic.
And I think that that leads us right into what you always say, Basui, which is that spirituality is in everything.
Yes.
And I know Christianity also alludes to that, just like what you were just saying about looking beyond the individual or the object and seeing the divine. I know in Christianity, they say things like the Jesus in me loves the Jesus in you. And that too is speaking to not looking at the person, but letting the spirit match the spirit. So that's one piece. But Basui, you always talk about how spirituality is in everything. And also in the Bible, it talks about how if you lift a rock, you'll find me there. I think split a rock, remember those verses? Yeah.
Split a rock and I'll be there too, because it's everywhere.
Exactly.
Because it's everywhere. It's every place. It's everywhere. It's in it's like you said, it's in this chair, it's in this table, it's in this computer. It's every single where.
Yeah.
And that's it. I think if we can get past and Kiana mentioned it, it's the ego, which translates our uncontrolled ego, which fights within our highest self. We're fighting against that thing which keeps us balanced. And the whole thing is about balance. the whole thing is about staying in balance with the divine laws that have already been put in place even before we were even created. So it's the Ma'at. Yes,
there
the law of the universe. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's really, I think if everybody stopped and just thought about their own way of worshiping and just pulled out all of the things that led you back to God or the divine, and didn't think about nothing else, then I think everybody would be on their own right track. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody would be on their own
I think so too. I believe so.
Yeah. And we would finally start to really get back to the divine, which is what we want to get back to. Mm-hmm. And if we can, and you know what, and this is pulling in Christianity just for a moment, because the only law that Jesus gave was the law of love. Because if you could just put aside all of the rest of it and you just focused on love, then everything else falls in place. You know what I mean? Mm. It's a hard pill to swallow because our ego is so strong. It's very easy for us to say on this podcast, we need to let go of our ego.
Right.
But apparently our ego is very strong. And you mentioned the individuals. I wrote that down. What is that? The Nebehet?
Oh, Nebehet.
Yeah, Nebehet. I put some things. I said to me that equaled my spiritual health, my spirit health that helped me. And then the Jehuti, right? Jehuti, I put that it equaled strength for me. So it was like, even though the set within myself is my uncontrolled ego, I have things within myself also, not things, but spirit helps. I have a spirit. In my case, it would be like my Holy Spirit, the spirit that is my helper, that helps me to overcome that ego. Right. And also the strength of Jehuti is just the strength of my divine self that keeps me from falling into the trap of my ego. So I have all this help along the way. And it's the same help you'll find in all of the other religions. When you think about Christianity, when you think about Islam, when you think about Judaism, they all have their own versions of this helper that helps you fight against your ego.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right? That made sense to everybody?
Oh, yeah.
Total.
Yeah.
Total. Yes, so, it's certainly.
I got a better understanding. I got a total better. I feel like I got all of this now. I do. I feel like.
Thanks.
No, I'm serious. Not even only just what's happening in Kemet. I think I got all of it. What's happening, period, in the world. I think I have a better understanding of what is happening in the world.
Right, and I hear you've been reading Spiritual Warriors and Healers as well.
Oh, I got my book right here. Yes, I'm doing my little. I'm doing my readings right now, and it's like so excited. I'm excited. I got so many books, and I'm listening to so many different audio books, and there is this they got some poetry in here. Prayers, I guess, poetry, prayers. They're just beautiful. I should read one. Can I read one?
No, please don't read one.
Okay.
Yeah, they are very beautiful.
They're beautiful. If you get an opportunity, please pick up the book, Spiritual Warriors or Healers. And please just read it because it's beautiful stuff in here. And I've been enjoying every minute of it.
Yeah.
But you know me, I enjoy study anyway. I enjoy learning new things and having a better understanding. And I have a very good understanding of everything that is happening here tonight. And I'm very grateful that we had this. Yeah. So,
but I remember, in my spiritual reading, going back to what we were just speaking to prior, my teacher, he told me that, I forgot the card that I picked. I think it was a card of spirituality. And, he told me what it meant was that, I should be reading really to tap into your spiritual side more, because that's, the direction that I'm really headed in. And he said, what you want to do is read spiritual books. Don't worry about where they're coming from. Just read it, get familiar with that environment of spirituality. Just really stay in that mode of being connected, of that mode of messages of reverence and gratitude to all life. You should always be reading about these messages, and these virtues. Try to stay as connected with them as you can. Stay in that environment, until you find your niche. But
I agree. I totally agree.
On all things spiritual. But you said they're talking about the same principle, they're just delivering it maybe in their, in their spin, but we can translate it as one reading.
Well, that's what I have done all of my whole 40 years of studying. And that is the reason why I can sit here tonight and tell you that not only do I get this, but I get all of it. Because to me, I read everything spiritual. I read everything spiritual because I guess like the creator, I want to experience life through everybody's vessel.
Right.
So I guess I inherited that from my father. you and I'm talking about my spiritual heavenly father.
Right.
So go ahead, Keith.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say anything. I just thought that was funny.
All right. Well, is there any closing remarks? My co-host had to take care of her doggie, so she put us on hold for a little bit. I don't want to close out until she comes back, but I don't know how long she's going to be. So does anybody have any closing remarks that they want to say or anything that they want to add? Because,
Well, I think Basui should definitely, now that he's given us three podcasts with an overview of everything, it explains a lot on what he's been up to in this past decade and what makes him, continue with the shrine and everything. So it kind of makes more sense now. I mean, not that it didn't make sense to me as his wife, but just to others who are interested in knowing a little bit about what he's about, because that's the question that I get asked so often. They look at me and they say, but what is his religion? What does he believe? And I always chuckle when I get this question, because I'm like, what? I don't understand the question, because I know that there's no religion in Kemet like that. It's spirituality is such a broader thing. We're not locked into a box of a religion. Although yes, I am a Christian and was raised in that way. But even just through my studies in these past 5 years, realizing that I don't even need to be in that box. As long as I have my mission, my journey, and I'm grateful for everything that Christianity has taught me, because that was my foundation to even understand a purpose-driven life and to even have that interest in a journey. So I still, love to read my Bible. There's so much wisdom in that as well, along with all the other pieces that we're getting. But these podcasts, I think, will really, really open up doors and opens people's mind to see that understanding about what can help you on your journey. There's no sin in that. There's no harm in that. That's what that may be the missing piece to help you really get your life together. So just
I totally agree. I totally agree with you. My journey as you beginning with Christianity was not wasted. All of the studying, all of my biblical work that I've done has aided me. And even sitting here right now telling you that I get it. I get it, because the understanding is in my head of all, of the all. And I found something on the internet when I was doing my research, and it says that what you said, Basui, that those animal like images were not gods. They're not gods or goddesses of Egypt. They are the Neteru of ancient Kemet. It says it's the divine laws and principles of the creator, one creator. These are symbols to help your limited human consciousness wrap itself around the concept of the all, only to be seen as individuals so that you can better understand the all. Right. Understanding something about the ocean through drops of water from it, you know. And I understood that because I sat here just now and said, I literally understand the all, the totality of it. And I don't, like, as Kiana mentioned, I don't know if I would have been able to really understand the totality of it if I haven't taken my 40-year journey. You understand what I'm saying? So it is not for me to dispel anything that I've learned along the way, but I have now come to what I believe in my own self, in my own heart, an actual completion. I feel like I've come full circle, and I've come to a completion where I understand the all and the totality of everything that I was trying to learn on this journey.
Right. Yeah, I think look, the best example that you just gave is the drop of water in the ocean. You know, they say that you can never really understand that something is a part of something if it never leaves it. You know, how much of a part of it is if it never leaves it. You know, then you understand that when it's isolated, wait a minute, it still has the same properties. Yeah. This is you know, like true to this circle or whatever entity that it came from.
Yeah.
You know, you could just think that it has those properties because it's within that environment. But I'll take it out the environment and see, wait a minute now.
That's right.
It exists the same.
The drop of water
outside of that environment that it does inside.
That's
so,
right.
You know,
those drops of water are still part of the ocean. They're still the ocean.
Right.
Although they're just drops of water, they are still part of the ocean.
Yes, and that's why
totality. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why Basui's teacher, he loves to remind us that we are divine spiritual beings having a divine human experience. And once you just switch to that little mindset, it changes everything about how you move in this life.
Yes.
Right.
And again,
another way of looking at that, I'm sorry, another way of looking at that, Kiana, and I'm gonna stay on the ocean thing, is that we are so much a part of the divine that even when we are just drops, we have been removed from the divine, but we are still part of the divine. Although we are drops of water.
Yes, we are just drops, but water is water.
Yes, but can you imagine when we all gather together, we become the ocean again.
Absolutely.
All of those drops of water, when you gather them all together, becomes the ocean again. And that's how I see ourselves, that we are part of this divine being. And each of us are drops of water from that divine pool. And when we all come together, we become the divine in its totality. That makes sense to you?
Of course.
Totally. That's powerful.
All get whatever tool we need to start our journey or continue our journey if we have already started, to not lose sight of it by distractions to the left or to the right. We have to stay on the course on what our gifts are and how to manifest those gifts for the divine to experience the best life that we can give.
And the tools are those domains, those primary domains. Yes. So we already have them, and going inside, meditating is where you'll get to find that and keep that balance. Staying definitely going within, because outside is already the manifestation. You just need to understand what you need to do and hear from God, and just be reminded reminded of those domains, because everything that we have is here. Those are our tools. Those are our tools. Look at nature. It gives us, it's a semblance of what our life is. Pay attention to the animals. That's how we live. We have shelter. We're covered. We have conscious mind. We can do more than what the animals could do, but they're not, scratching, trying to find something to eat. They're not, they're managing.
Right.
So can we, because we're higher consciousness. So take a play from those, take a playbook page from nature and the animals, because that's where it's at.
That's right. That's right. But the thing that we have to go against, which is sad, is that, you take a example of Dr. Sebi. They want to lock him up because he's using the plant domain to heal people.
Yeah.
So, the thing that promotes my art is use the other domains to help benefit humanity, to benefit creation. Yeah. That's what he did, but they want to lock him. So, this is the backward society that we're in. Mm-hmm. Trying to use my art, it criminalizes you, for trying to better humanity. So that this is the task that we have in front of us,
Yeah, it's huge. But I believe that we're at a time of high consciousness. And I think because of now all the, the chaos that's going on in the world, it's seeking to create confusion so that no one really knows which way to go. It's like, oh, this high consciousness, then maybe I need to be over here. And it's like, no, you need to be focusing on so many other things and keep the distraction going. It's a game of the distraction.
Yeah. People are still confused, though, because they're not understanding what I just said, the totality of it all. If they had even a small understanding, they would not be going here and there and to and fro and saying you're wrong and you need to do this and you need to do that. They would, the only word they would stay in their own lane. Okay. Yeah. They would understand that we are all working our way back to the ocean.
That's right.
I like that ocean theory. They would
I love it too.
Yeah.
We're all working our way back to the ocean.
Yeah.
That's the best way to explain the concept of spirituality and, being individual spiritual beings, living in this realm. Like that's it right there,
We're gonna all wake up one day and we're all going to understand it, and we're all going to we're gonna do it. I know that it's difficult with so many different stories, but if you can just concentrate on the story that best helps you to understand what's happening. Jesus spoke in parables. He spoke in parables because that was what was happening in that time. They understood fishing, they understood farming, they understood these things, and he spoke that way so that they could understand. If each of us can just concentrate on the stories, the mythology, the readings and the spiritual stuff that can better help us to understand, some people have to count on their fingers. Some people can count in their head. Some people have to write things down or actually get sticks to put them all together, but they're counting, right? And they're coming to a sum by their own means. We all have different ways in which we learn. Some of us are visual. Some of us are
audible.
Exactly.
Kinesthetic.
So if we can just totally keep our concentration on the way that we learn and the way that we accept information and just receive the information. And we still have work to do, because we still have to fight against the ego, our ego. The fight is not outside of ourselves. In the Christian world, Jesus says the kingdom of God is within you. Well, we need to understand that the fight, the ego, is within us. It is the fight within us. I'm not fighting with you, Basui. I'm not fighting with you, Anita. I'm not fighting with you, Kiana. I'm actually fighting with myself. There is no outside fight. And I think on one of these outlines, you ended with the path of a spiritual warrior is know thyself. And spiritual readiness. We must tackle the I, the me, what's happening inside of us, because there is no enemy without. The enemy is within. And that's where the fight begins, on the inside of us. And if we concentrate on understanding that we have to get to that place within our own spirit, and there's nothing outside of us, then we will be better equipped to deal with what's happening in the world. That's my opinion. I know it's just my opinion. And so I'm just going to put my opinion out there and say that's how I believe we can get to, what do you say, Ma'at? I think we can get to a divine order if we all search within ourselves and did the work that comes with knowing thyself. So that's where I'm going to end it. And each of you can give me your final thoughts, starting with you, Kiana.
Well, yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. That's always been my position for the past 20 years, I'd say. I've been very focused on my journey and wanting to shine my light in the world and do everything that I'm supposed to do so that I can make my contribution, because I do see every life on the planet as, like you said, a drop of water, a contribution. So I wouldn't want to waste this life by not fulfilling my mission. And also last month, we talked about how what they wrote in their lifetime was their living obituary of keeping track of what they're doing, so they know when the day they die, this record has already been there. You don't have to scramble to write an obituary to figure out what a person did, because that person wrote it already. So that's the same mindset that we're carrying on this journey. What do we want to accomplish? And it doesn't even have to be like, I'm not even talking about accomplishments in the Western sense of what society says is success, not that type of accomplishments. Like Dr. Caroline already pointed out, the fight is within. So what are you accomplishing by how are you keeping your ego at check, at bay every single day? That's an accomplishment. If I can wake up every day knowing that that's the only task I have, and I succeed at night, when I go to bed, I can lay down and say I did that. That's the success I'm talking about, because then I know that's helping me on my journey to say that I have lived my. So yeah, I'm so happy that we've had these conversations for these past 3 months, because they're helpful to me, who's continuing on in my learning, but I think it's really helpful to those who haven't even started yet. I think that they kind of have some direction now. So thank you so much for this podcast.
Yes. Basui?
Yeah, and just to, go off of what Kiana was just, speaking on, and she says this sometimes too, is that, we think that change happens, and, to be cliche-ish, that change happens overnight or, in an instance. But we get deterred very easily, and we can get disappointed very quickly when we think like that. What was it? The saying, Kiana? Progress over
perfection. Progress over perfection.
Progress over perfection. And so we have to treat that as our approach to life. And that way we can understand, as Dr. J, what you were saying, that we all are a part of this pool. We're just like this one little drop working on ourselves to get back to this pool. But that work may be a lifetime. It just may be, it may be a few years, but we just got to know that that work is one step at a time. And, just within health, I would never tell a person to just, if they're eating meat or pork or whatever, just cut out what they're doing and go straight into a all green diet, because that can actually shock the system. Yeah. So they have a concept which is called crowding out. You introduce health at a time and in bits, and then by the end of the maybe year or something, next thing you know, you look up, and your plate has more greenery on it than meat on it, you know? You are still eating what you're eating, but you're crowding it out, you know, with new stuff that you add throughout the years, you know, and that's how we should approach spirituality. You know, we introduce a new ritual every, you know, few, out of whatever, days or years or weeks or months or whatever. Just add a new ritual, add something new that's going to familiarize you with that creative force, you know, just something new, whether it's a bit of gratitude or, you know, we have this gratitude jar that I know I need to, that I need to really commit to. But these are just anything, any small, minute thing that can help you along your mission that you can just add in a modicum, you know, add very minutely, and just keep adding it, and don't worry about the goal. Just worry about that journey, you know, and as you see the progress, that's gonna inspire you more to keep doing what you're doing to reach that goal. So I think to me, that's one of the best approaches to take in life, you know, the crowding out method, where you just, you know, continue what you're doing. Don't go, you know, you can't go cold turkey. Everybody can't. Some people can't. But if you can't, then stay in your comfort zone, but add things that will eventually move you out of that comfort zone, you know. So by the next thing you know, you're walking a whole different walk without even realizing, you know.
I like that advice. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna work on that myself, because there's some things that I need to crowd out. So
crowd it out, crowd it out.
So thank you for that. And my lovely co-host is back from walking her dog. So
Hi.
Anita, what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I think everyone, you know, contributed thoughts that I would have shared. I just like to say at the close of this topic, these past 3 months have really been enriching. And it's an area I've not even begun to think about. I've not even known about, but as from my very first meeting, it was like an awareness. It was as if I'd been wanting to know this information, but never knew where to look. And I have been asking people. So thank you, Basui, for bringing this topic and really educating me, us, all of our listeners on this topic. And it's real. Last month, there were parallels to present day activities that you were talking about of ancient Kemet times. And it's all there for us to see if our eyes are open, and you have definitely done that. It's like the lifting of the veil. I've used that before. It was in my notes. It's the lifting of the veil. We now see. And so for me, I will continue on in this journey and the unfolding and excavating of our ancient past, because there is something there and this story needs to get out. And thank you so much as you continue on this journey and bringing this truth to us. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. I'm just appreciative to be able to do this, you know, and actually speak what I know on Kemet, and hope that I can, you know, if not influence, but just captivate the mind for a minute and get people to think a different way about what they may have thought about Kemet, you know. And I hope I've just done that, and you know.
Well, you have.
I might have done
you
that.
Have.
So I appreciate it.
It's accomplished. So just keep spreading the word, because you know, the lifting, the raising of consciousness it's here. It's this time. That's why all these things are being uncovered, and you know, we're hearing about it in the news. You know, statues and stolen goods from the African countries are being returned, and the stories are coming up. It's just every day it's something else, because that now it's that time. It's that time. So you're spot on. Keep doing the work.
And I recognize that even these 3 part series is not really enough. So we're gonna have you back, but we're gonna have a different format where you can actually be able to really give some really good lessons, and that's forthcoming. So we'll talk about that later. So we've come to the end of our program. This is Dr. Caroline Bethea-Jones, and I'm here with my very special guest, Mr. Basui Nikaamen, and his wife, Kiana Jones Nikaamen, and of course, my lovely co-host, Miss Anita D. Crum. We are happy to bring this lesson to you, and we plan on bringing you so much more. Next month, we start a whole nother series on something totally different, and we hope that you're going to like that as well. We want you to join us again as we come back and have another candid conversation about something fun. And in the meantime, if there is anything you would like to hear or understand or talk about, or if you want to be a part of the show, just give us a call, send us an email, go to our website. All of that information will be put into the podcast information. But the bottom line is we want to hear from you. So have a good night, and we will see you next time.
Wow. Shay.